In this video, we're going to take a look at data standouts from the 2024 minor league season on an individual player level. A week or two ago, I made a video that was more on the team level, so now let's dig into these specific guys that stand out. Most of the data in here you're going to see is actually not public information. AAA stuff is available publicly, but below that, for the most part, it's not. But I have access, so it's time to look at some of that information and see what we can learn about specific guys. We'll split it up, start with pitching, and then go to hitting. I encourage you to check out the chapters of this if you're looking for anything in particular. I'll be down in this corner. At the top, we'll have some data, and bottom left of your screen, I'll throw in some video, some pictures, etc. to try to keep you entertained. So let's do this. Four-seam fastball off the top. I think this is a pretty good way to just encapsulate who in the minor leagues is really good at throwing their fastball. And I did a specific sort here. So I looked at 94 miles per hour or greater, so above average velo, above average zone rate, 55% or greater, and above average swing and miss, 28% or later, implying that these guys generate some in-zone swing and miss. What I got back was 10 pitchers. This is a minimum of about 300 four-seam fastballs thrown. 10 pitchers, 8 of them are relievers, not particularly surprising. 2 of them, however, are being treated as starting pitchers right now, and they're both on the Tampa Bay Rays. This is something that has been persistent on my channel, is that I point out how the Rays are very good at pitching development. And these two names are Ty Johnson and Alex Cook. Ty Johnson's probably the more fascinating one. He was acquired in the Christopher Morel trade that was alongside Isaac Paredes, with Hunter Biggie and a couple other guys swapping between those two teams. For the most part, that trade seems like it hasn't had too much of an impact, but Johnson is a guy that's pretty interesting for a few reasons. He's a 15th rounder out of Ball State. He posted a 2.79 ERA in 84 innings this season with 120 strikeouts, mostly at high A. And honestly, when you look at his fastball, it's not particularly surprising. It's not like something you're 20 vert with a ton of arm side or anything cut carry. It's 15 vert, 11 arm side at 94 miles per hour. It's a pretty standard shape. He's got average extension, 6.4 feet. And then you get to the release height, which is below average at 5.5. And 5.8 feet is generally the major league average for a four-seam. Now, at that 5.5 release, we're expecting, or the average is about 15 inches of vertical break. So he's dead on with that average. So you might be looking at that and going, I don't understand why this pitch is succeeding so much. And that's what I thought initially. And then I saw his height, and I saw how he throws. 6'6" dude getting down to a 5.5 foot release. It's a weird pitch. And this, I think, gets at the main point that I want to make with him in particular. And I mentioned this on a variety of other guys, Paul Skeens videos I've done, Yuri Perez, etc. When your body gets to a release height in an odd way, or a release height that's unconventional for your size, I would imagine if our 5'8" is the average release height, a guy who's up at 6'6", the release height's even higher. So because he's 6'6", getting down to a 5.5, that is, I really think, where the bread and butter for him is on this four-seam shape, and the fact that he's throwing from a sidearm slot, but he's able to create at least an average amount of vert on it. It looks weird. It's a weird look for him, and that's really the main thing for me that stands out. This gets into a larger topic of like break off arm angle, which we'd get, from an expected break standpoint now that Baseball Savant has released some really cool arm angle data. We'd get this when he gets up to the major league level, but on the minor league level, we're kind of almost backing into it, assuming that a guy who's 6'6" is getting to an average shape otherwise in an odd way, and we can assume that, okay, that's probably part of the reason why this pitch is succeeding so well. So that's Ty Johnson. Alex Cook, on the other hand, 12th rounder, Colby Community College 2022, 40 innings as a starter. He had a 1.69, pretty standard peripherals, strikeouts and walks. And then he got hurt. He only pitched from June until June, so April through June. And I couldn't find much info on what was up there, but I'll go quicker on him. But he's the other guy here that, again, has a really good fastball. This is more prototypical. This is 20 vert, 94, 6 arm side. This might come down with the Major League Baseball in terms of how much induced vertical break he's getting. And he's got above average extension at 6'6", and his release is at 5.9 feet. I think he's a short and stocky guy, as you can see from the video. I saw Eric Longenhagen of Fangraphs say that this is more projected as a reliever. Alex Cook, this is more standard. We're expecting about 16 inches of vert from that slot that he has at 5.9 feet. And he's 4 inches above that. So it's a pretty good template to go from in terms of assuming that this pitch will succeed, especially as he climbs up. Even if it drops to like 18.5, 18 with a major league ball, at 94, from his release with his extension, I think this pitch will still play. So this is a fastball first reliever for me. How about we go to another topic? Is the sweeper dying? This is a really interesting question because I just wanted to look at what were the best breaking balls in the minors. So the data I have doesn't split out based on sweeper and slider. So I just grouped everything together on slider and everything together on curveball. and sorted it based specifically on swing and miss. Of the top 15 swing and miss pitches, only 3 of them have 9 or more inches of sweep. That's only about 20% or so. And this holds up when you push it out to about the top 30 and top 45, where we were looking at about 5 to 8-ish with more than 9 inches of sweep. I think sweepers, for the most part, became really popular in like 22, 23, and really took over the baseball universe because it was really easy for a lot of guys who were throwing curveball to just change orientation, take a 2-seam curveball, slider grip, cue curveball out of hand, let the seams do the work. Everyone was picking it up. Models said it was really good. The big thing, though, is you're training a model based on recent data. So as you acquire more information, those models are going to change. So the exact same pitch, if the league is changing around that identical sweeper year to year, is going to have a different value because hitters are adjusting to it. I think for the most part, what teams like the Dodgers and the Rays have done is not so much focus on sweepers for starting pitchers, but look at more short sliders. And I wonder whether some of the signal we're seeing in this minor league data is assuming the same thing, where we're getting a lot of pitches that are succeeding in the minors that aren't necessarily big sweep. And as a result of that, I wonder whether this comes up through the majors and whether we've kind of almost peaked the rate of growth of sweepers, I would say, in the majors. And maybe there's a couple reasons why. I think when you just look at aggregated information on, how do sweepers perform in opposite-handed matchups, regular sliders perform better, a swing miss here from a swinging strike standpoint, 16% versus 12%. And in oppo-handed matchups like this, xwOBA on contact, so expected damage for ball in play, is 20 points higher. So sliders are just better in oppo-handed. You mostly think of sweepers as like same-handed, so left, right. They dominate left, sure, but there's a lot more right matchups. Sweepers are better, but I wouldn't say that they're demonstrably better in the sense that there's a massive gap here where everyone should be throwing one. And I really think that matters because as we use stuff models based on prior information, I wonder whether we almost start to develop stuff models that are much more appropriate for small windows of time. And a lot of the time when we zoom out and look at this aggregated info, I do think we lose a bit of the nuance as to what fits in a certain guy's mix. We've seen, honestly, in this last 2-year period, a lot of guys adding second sliders and throwing those also to righties to almost supplement sweepers off the plate in those right situations. So I'm curious to see if this continues over time and if we have, almost a peak of sweeper and we see more slider, we see other things that just complement sweepers. I'm not saying sweepers are bad. I'm just saying if you're a pitching prospect and your main pitch is a sweeper and you're getting results in the minor leagues, I'm not totally like over the moon about that. I'd be more over the moon about a guy who has more of like a pure bullet shape or a short slider, like, 2 and 5 in terms of 2 inches vertical break, 5 inches sweep at above average velo, who's getting results that emulate a sweeper. Because I know if I need that guy versus righties to have a bigger shape, he could probably go to a sweeper. And I really like that shorter shape from a starter projection standpoint. I just think guys can control it more. The last nugget I'll throw to you on the breaking ball side, which is contrasting with what I just said, is that we got to point out this guy, Kenny Perez for the Cubs. He's a Class A pitcher. He had a 70% swing miss rate on his slider. The best pitches in baseball are like 45-ish%. And even that is really hard to sustain over a long haul. The funny thing here, though, is that Kenny Perez walked 25% of the batters he faced. 25%. He had a 14 walks per 9. This is just one of those moments where I was very curious to see what the best breaking ball was based on the swing miss variable. And this is what I got. And I just find it funny. I don't know. I don't really know what to make of Kenny. I think maybe this highlights how, I wouldn't say deficient of talent A-ball is, but we're just seeing a lot of guys jump that level. And I just don't really know what to make of information down there. And this is a great example of that because this sweeper looks good from a data standpoint. It's big, it's hard. It's so funny to me that he's able to generate this much swing miss. It must have just been guys chasing out of the zone on it. The chase rate's more average, though. Just a very weird pitch. It was something that jumped out to me and I had to point out. The last note I want to get to on the pitcher side before we jump to some hitter stuff, I'm going to combine changeup and changeup and splitter here and do the same thing I just did, right? Minimum 300 pitches based on purely swing miss. Who's number 1, who's number 2? And I love this because we've been talking a lot about like how body influences shape, etc. We have 2 very different shapes here. The first guy's Jackson Humphreys. The second guy's Dayson. I'm not sure how to say that. We'll go Dayson Acosta. Humphreys is an A-ball pitcher in the Guardians organization. And he's a 2022 8th rounder out of North Carolina High School. 80 innings this year with a 4.5 plus ERA. A lot of walks, good swing miss. All you got to do is take a look at his delivery, which should be in the bottom right of your screen right now. and you'll very quickly understand why he's a weird lefty or why you categorize him as a weird lefty. Super over-the-top motion. His horizontal release point is literally at 0, so it's perfectly centered over the rubber, where the average one for a lefty is probably about 1.5 feet or more than that to the first base side. So it's a very vertical slot, weird motion. There's some changeups I'm showing here that break really weird. It's an 81-mile-per-hour pitch with 14 inches of vertical break, 14 inches of arm side movement at 2,000 RPMs. 6'3" release is above average. I think the most impressive part is that he actually zoned the pitch 50%, and he still got nearly almost 70% swing miss. This is a weird pitch. It's screwball-y, but I almost say it's not screwball-y because he gets a lot of vert on it. So it's dropping, but he's backspinning it. So it's just a weird pitch. You can almost see a little bit visually on a few of these how they kind of like bend to the right. I guess it's screwball, but it's not traditionally how I think of screwball, almost like a Michael Wacha changeup way screwball. It's just an odd pitch. The Guardians are really good with IDing and just seeing what happens with these weird lefties. We saw it with like a Joey Cantillo at the major league level. This season, another lefty, high slot, weird changeup that works. Doesn't really grade out well in shape, but it's a good pitch. Matt Tugboat Wilkinson, who's this weird pitcher who has like 7 feet of extension and throws like 89, who I don't know what to do with in the minor leagues, but he's another one. This is a weird pitch. It's a screwball-y vert changeup that gets a lot of swing miss. And it contrasts a ton with Acosta, who I think was a 2023 Rule 5 draftee on the minor league side from the Mets to the Nationals. He throws an 87-mile-per-hour split that is basically pure gyro. So imagine how like a bullet spins. That's how his pitch moves. 0 inches of vertical break, 6 inches arm side movement, and he's like 700 RPM lower than Humphreys down at 1300. Low extension, average release, etc. When you watch him throw, he tilts up a little bit, but this pitch is, again, just spinning like a bullet and it dies. And the swing miss here is really impressive. It's more of a chase pitch. He's not zoning in as much as Humphreys. It's really, really hard to barrel. Some of these swings, you can tell it's just kind of an invisible pitch. It reminds me a bit of like Fernando Cruz, Hurston Waldrop, and I like it. You know, he's had some walk problems, etc., which isn't particularly surprising. Maybe he's just a one-pitch guy, but again, I think that contrast here is really important. We're getting at the point where I just talked about sweepers and it being something that a lot of teams were just like, everybody should throw. And I think that's just not a good idea. Maybe it's a good idea from this idea of just going and giving everybody the same thing and hoping a couple guys pop. I always call it the venture capital strategy. I know I've kind of overused that phrase probably on this channel, but it's true, right? You have a portfolio of pitchers, you give them all the same pitch. There's probably a few that pop. Those guys become major leaguers and you're right on track. Now let's go to hitters. I don't talk much hitters here. I just don't think I'm well versed in what I'm looking for on the data side, but I'm going to take a stab at it because that's how you learn to some extent. Let's just go and look at who the best hitters in the minor leagues this year were. I'm going to go below 25% swing and miss, 200 plus ball in play. I want you lifting the ball, so I'm going to go above a 14-degree launch and give me like a 104 plus 90th percentile exit velocity. So taking your 10% of your hardest hit balls and finding the average of those as opposed to just looking at raw average. These are like performing hitters, you know? They're not getting overmatched by minor league pitching, etc. 27 names here. I'm going to rank these guys based on the top 4 in terms of their xwOBA. And you get a couple interesting names. Dalton Rushing, catching prospect for the Dodgers. Really good hitter. He projects pretty strong. He's a top 100 guy. Dylan Dingler is a guy who got called up for the Tigers, played in 20 games at the end of the season, didn't look too great. 2 catching prospects is a little odd to me. You have Kyle Manzardo, who's a guy that kind of just seems like he hasn't put it together in the major leagues. And then Adrian Del Castillo is another guy who just got called up for the Diamondbacks, 25 or so games, didn't have great results. We've seen that a lot, I think, this season. But from a result standpoint, all these guys matched and have no issues with minor league pitching. Perhaps this just highlights that when you succeed in the minor leagues, it's different than what's happening in the major leagues. And maybe to some extent, you just need to come up and perform against major league pitching to prove that you're a good hitter. But I think the main thing of my takeaway here is because we weren't lining up maybe 1-to-1 on what top prospects are on the hitting side. You look at like Long and Higgins' top 100 in terms of who the best hitters are. I didn't really see many of those names when I was sorting based on this sort of what I thought would be a good hitter. Low swing miss, high ball and play, lift ball, hit ball hard, right? Like that's who I think is a good performer. But that doesn't line up with the best prospects, which maybe gets into the point that projection is really important. So we could change the sort slightly. We could stick on 200 ball in play. But I just want to maybe look at the guys who hit the ball hardest without a care for discipline. This isn't perfect, but I just want the guys from like a 90th percentile exit velocity standpoint that hit the ball really hard And I don't really care about almost anything else to some extent. So we could just look 200 ball in play, hit the ball hard. Let's look at look. And again, this is going to be the fun hitters to some extent because these guys miss. A lot of them miss. Reese Hines is on here, who's a really, really bad contact rate from the Reds. But when he makes contact, it's pretty impressive. The guy I want to point out that's most interesting to me is this kid, Ernesto Martinez Jr., who's a Brewers first base prospect. He had the highest 90th percentile exit velocity in the minors based on this sample sort here of just looking at who put a ball in play a lot. 6'6", 250. This dude is huge, and he torches the ball. I was kind of expecting a wackier swing. It's actually a pretty compact swing. I'm not like totally, obviously he's maybe going to get tied up inside, etc. But it's a little like James Woody. He's not hitting the ball as hard. He doesn't have the same results, but I'm kind of impressed with him, especially from the standpoint is he doesn't swing and miss a lot. So we're not looking at like a Reese Hines. We're looking at a guy who just torches the ball and also kind of lifts it too. I just had never heard this name. So the fact that he popped on here is just a guy I'm going to keep an eye on. Teheran Lorenzo from the Tigers acquired in the Jack Flaherty trade, also in this window. Very fun. These are the guys that are like fun, right? But again, I still don't think we're nailing the top prospects. But the way to look at, from my perspective, the top prospects is honestly an even simpler sort. I just want to look at average exit velocity. So I'm not even taking your top hardest hit balls, which is more projectable. What I'm taking is the guys who just hit the ball hard and then maybe kind of glancing at launch angle to some extent to see if a lot of it's on the ground. This is maybe what we're getting at, projectability. The guys who just hit the ball hard are maybe the ones that have the most signal. Maybe some of the things we see at the major league level on the 90th percentile exit velocity side, xwOBA, etc., are good at predicting major league hitters from getting major league sample. But I wonder if in the minor leagues, there's just so much projection and nuance to go on that some of the more basic traits, like just hitting the ball hard, not even hitting the ball hard at, your 10% hardest hit balls, but just hitting the ball hard, average exit velo, lines up with more of the interesting prospects from a top prospect standpoint in baseball. 917 guys here with 200 plus balls in play on the minor leagues this season, Class A to AAA. Xavier Isaac, number 1 in just average exit velocity. Now we're getting into some window here where you're recognizing names from a top prospect standpoint. Spencer Jones, Bryce Eldridge, a couple others too. If you just want to do like a straight xwOBA sort, which I'll jump to in a sec, there's a couple other guys there. But this is more in line with, the top guys. Xavier Isaac also lifting the ball a bit too. He's playing in the AFL right now. He looks really good, I think, from a variety of standpoints. Most people, I think, have him as like a top 25 prospect right now. Torches the ball, lifts it, really encouraging. He's not totally pounding it into the ground. Spencer Jones struggled a bit. Maybe everyone thought he was going to break out this year. Bryce Eldridge is another one too, right up there. This is now getting into windows where we see guys that are really good hitting prospects overall. So maybe even if they don't have the total package from like a contact width, etc. standpoint, I wonder if there's something here from the analysis standpoint on the scout side that IDs these guys and goes, yeah, we can make adjustments here. We could get these guys to mature and they become better hitters and they become the top prospects in baseball. So I would say those are more like consensus guys. Kevin McGonigal, if you just want to sort purely on xwOBA, so this is maybe another decent example of pointing out some top prospects. Kevin McGonigal from the Tigers, who's a really kind of short guy with just insane discipline, really high walk rate, also plays a decent shortstop, pops. This is now when we bring in, instead of just raw hitting the ball hard, this is now a more disciplined standpoint. Kevin McGonigal, Kristian Campbell was another one who's really popped. I know he's popped in Baseball America's rankings. So, it almost seems like when you take away a lot of qualifiers, you get into guys that are very good and projected to be very good. So Kristian Campbell, Kevin McGonigal are two guys I'm keeping my eye on. Jones, Isaac, Eldridge, also pretty solid. And then the last nugget I'm going to give you, if you've hung around to this point in the video, I do have a ball hit 123 in the minors this year, which is the hardest hit ball. And it's by a Dodger, Josue De Paula, who I know has been brought up as rumored in like some crochet trades from the Dodgers and stuff. I don't know if this is an error. It might be a ball. I don't have individual balls, so I don't know if this is like a negative 5-degree launch angle right into the ground. But yeah, 123 is really hard. That'd be the hardest ball hit in the majors. So this dude's huge again. Just hits the ball really hard. And I imagine even if you pull out that 123, he's probably still in the top 5 of max exit velocity. But I thought that was a fun nugget to give you as we go out here. I'm not saying it's a ball hit 123 with like a 30-degree launch and it's the best hit ball ever, arguably from a data standpoint. But I do think to some extent that Josue De Paula is good. That again lines up with a lot of what scouts think in other sites. So I hope you enjoyed this video, jumping around, looking at some individual standouts on the minor leagues this season. I'll maybe do another one of these next season, but this was my main look pointing out some larger concepts, wondering whether on the hitting side, individual traits are more important perhaps than other things. In the aggregate, really trying to sample down and look at who performed well. So projection is hard. Player development is really hard, I think, overall. But hopefully you enjoyed this video. As always, thanks for watching. Enjoy the postseason.